Wait, what's this? The difference between a democracy and a republic. This is like a talking point that these moronic conservatives use all the time. Like, the US isn't a democracy, it's a republic, as if like those two things can't exist at the same time. Doesn't make any sense. Let's see what their argument is.
At the close of the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia in 1789, legend has
it that the founding fathers decided that non-white people were not people and could not be citizens.
That a woman called out to Benjamin Franklin to ask what kind of government the delegates had created. Franklin responded, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." A republic? Shouldn't Franklin have said a democracy?
No, because that word was barely even used at the time. But what a republic means in that sense, like it's not literally like saying we're not a democracy, we're a republic. It's saying we're not a monarchy, we are a republic. It's essentially a state ruled by the bourgeoisie rather than by the aristocracy. I hate PragerU. I hate conservatives. I hate liberals. I hate everyone.
Isn't that what we have in the United States? Most people today would say yes. After all, if our country isn't a democracy, what is it? It's not a dictatorship, the rule of one man,
yes,
or an oligarchy ruled by a small group.
Yes, it is.
In America, the people are in charge. That's literally what democracy means in the original Greek. Demos, kratos. The people, demos, rule, kratos. But let's pause for a moment and consider more deeply what the word means in practice and why the delegates in Philadelphia rejected it. That's right, rejected it. Our government was established by a national charter, the Constitution of the United States. We are governed by the institutions and according to the rules and principles created and adopted.
This is literally how liberals describe liberal democracy, all of this. And he's gonna describe liberal democracy and then say this isn't democracy. What? It doesn't make sense.
Our forebears ratified that document,
so stupid,
making it the supreme law of the land.
90% of the countries in the world have a constitution. Doesn't make sense.
Are those institutions, properly speaking, democratic? The men who bequeathed our form of government to us, those we call our founding fathers, didn't see it that way. They understood.
He's just going to straight up admit, his argument is going to be okay, so we have these institutions, right, that some people say are democratic. But I'm going to say that they're not democratic, so we're not actually a democracy, and that's a good thing. You should be happy about it. It's like he's arguing against his own ideas, and then he's in a way that will be repulsive to most people, and then saying, but actually this is a good thing.
Institutions established by the Constitution to be Republican. In fact, though the founders believed in government of the people, by the people, for the people, as Abraham Lincoln put it in the Gettysburg Address, they did not believe in pure or unrestricted democracy.
Now he's going to argue that direct democracy is bad, but direct democracy literally doesn't exist. All that we have is representative democracy. Representative democracy is not republicanism in any respect. Having a republic and a democracy, those are not contradictory ideas. It doesn't make any sense at all. They're contradictory ideas for me, but for the liberals who this guy's trying to epically own, they're not. A republic is just a state that is ruled by, liberal democratic institutions rather than by a fucking monarch. And they're trying to create this tension between the concept of liberal democracy and a republic that literally doesn't exist.
They feared that democracy, strictly speaking, contained within it the impulse to mob rule, the stifling of civil liberty, the trampling by majorities of the rights of minorities.
Oh yeah, that didn't happen anyway and still doesn't happen anyway.
To put it more bluntly, pure democracy frightened them. So while
because they were rich fucking white guys.
They built into the Constitution significant democratic elements, they also built in non-democratic features to protect liberty and prevent.
In order to prevent tyranny, we need to make sure that the smallest amount possible of people, if it have any influence on the government. That's how you prevent tyranny.
It wasn't simply that they favored representative government over direct democracy, though they did. It's that they rejected the idea that the majority wins was by definition the just outcome. Indeed, in what is perhaps the most famous of the 85 Federalist Papers, Federalist 10, James Madison, precisely in distinguishing a democracy, which he did not favor, from a republic, which he did, noted that a crucial advantage of republicanism is to refine the public views by passing them through the medium of a chosen body of citizens whose wisdom may best discern the true interests of the country.
It's literally just outright saying, like, you're too stupid to know what you want. So us superior landed white men need to make sure that you don't choose badly. Old man made distinction between two things that are not at all in tension with one another, at least by liberal beliefs. Therefore, that means that this is coherent and not totally stupid.
And so we have representative government. And more than that, we have a bicameral, that is, two-tiered legislature.
So does, like, literally 95% of countries in the fucking world.
A Congress with a highly democratic House of Representatives.
Like, he's like explaining a highly democratic House of he's like explaining, like, the USA as if it's something fucking special and unique. As if this isn't like the standard around the world, and what any generic, like, when generic morons talk about democracy, this is what they think about.
And a not very democratic Senate. Therefore, California, with its massive population, has 52 representatives in the House. Wyoming has 1. Yet Wyoming has 2 senators, the same number as California and every other state.
And that's bad.
A pure Democrat would say that's unfair. Each Wyoming resident has far more power than every Californian. But a Republican would say, well, we aren't and shouldn't be a pure democracy.
Yes, I totally agree. Some random fucking morons from whatever the fuck Wyoming is should be able to dictate what people from a far more populous area should be able to do. Now, that's a great system of government. Why? Well, obviously, to prevent the majority rule, to prevent the masses from thinking that they know what's good for them when they don't. So the fine population of Wyoming need to be able to stop them from doing what they want.
If we were, large population states like California would overwhelm the needs and interests of small populations.
Who fucking cares? There's less people there.
Like Wyoming. That's why we're called the United States of America.
Is this for children? That's why we're called the United States of America, because they're states and they have governments.
Each state has its own separate identity, holds its own separate elections, just as we don't want one person.
Wow. As we all know, the USA is special. It's the only country in the world where there are states that have elections.
Or small group of people to dominate our government. We don't want one state or a few states to dominate our government. A republic is a way of diffusing power, and a brilliant one at that. We see something similar in the Constitution's procedures for choosing a president. An obvious possibility would have been by a national popular vote. The founders
now they're going to defend the Electoral College.
Wisely decided against this option.
They wisely decided against this option because it's good when the president loses the popular vote and still wins.
Rather, they created an electoral college to protect the interests of the less populous states.
They created an electoral college because they were fucking morons.
Even today, their decision makes sense. As my Princeton colleague, Professor Alan Gelzo, observes, a direct national popular vote would incentivize campaigns to focus almost exclusively on densely populated urban areas.
That makes no sense. Like, do you not think that people in less densely populated areas also have opinions on things? Like, they don't need to be specifically campaigned to. You don't need to fucking go to them and shake their fucking hand and say, hey man, I'm doing this specifically for you. Like, laws everywhere affect them.
The electoral college system incentivizes candidates to court.
It's like, what is the evidence that the electoral college is better anyway?
Communism is based.
Like, the US is objectively worse in every possible quality of life metric, including in these supposedly unrepresented rural areas, right? Than tons of countries. Like 20, 25 countries at least, even by like the HDI.
Communism is based.
So where's the evidence that this is better, that it works out better?
Voters more broadly, making presidential elections more fully national. So if we understand the system of government our founders bequeathed to us, we will see why they preferred to describe it as a republic.
Like, out of everything that he cited, the only thing that's not shared by most countries in the world is the electoral college. Nothing else.
rather than a democracy. Of course, it has strong democratic elements, but America was not created to be a pure democracy.
Like, what this sounds to me is essentially a supporter of liberal democracy admitting outright that liberal democracy is not actually democratic and saying, good, it's not democratic and that's good. See, this is the good thing about conservatives. They'll not only say the quiet part out loud, they'll say the quiet part out loud intentionally, and they'll try to tell you that it's a good thing. Whereas a liberal will argue tooth and nail that liberal democracy is actually democratic and actually properly represents the interests of the majority. This is base. PragerU, thank you for being honest.
For very good reasons. Those reasons remain as valid today as they were in 1789. We should not go along with those who today are demanding
It's so funny because in 1789, the only people who were allowed to vote were landed white men.
constitutional changes simply because this or that institution or procedure established by the Constitution, say the
It's like established by the Constitution, therefore it's good.
Senate or the Electoral College, is not democratic. More democratic doesn't necessarily mean better. It doesn't necessarily mean more just.
Yes, it does. It literally does.
Our founders understood this.
No, the founders were like white fucking slave owners. Who gives a shit what they understand?
So should we. We have a republic, and we should keep it. I'm Robert George, McCormick Professor of Jurisprudence.
So yeah, that video sucked.